Hi Swallowtails, it is time for our gathering. So we will start with a song, then a question, story, answers, poem of the day, activity, and stickers. So our song we're going to sing today is the same one from yesterday, which is called The Farmer Plants the Seeds. So there are hand movements and there are lyrics. So if you remember the hand movements from yesterday, maybe you can do them with me. Okay, let's get started. The farmer plants the seeds, the farmer plants the seeds. Hi ho the dairy-o, the farmer plants the seeds. The sun comes out to shine, the sun comes out to shine. Hi ho the dairy-o, the sun comes out to shine. The rain begins to fall, the rain begins to fall. Hi ho the dairy-o, the rain begins to fall. The plants begin to grow, the plants begin to grow. Hi ho the dairy-o, the plants begin to grow. The farmer picks the crops, the farmer picks the crops. Hi ho the dairy-o, the farmer picks the crops. We all sit down to eat, we all sit down to eat. Hi ho the dairy-o, we all sit down to eat. Okay, that's the end of our song. I chose that song because it reminds me of springtime. And that's when we plant our garden, usually at Four Seasons. And in our garden right now, we have corn, watermelon, tomatoes, cantaloupe, mint, rosemary. And I think we have some mystery peppers and cucumbers growing. So those are all things that we can eat when they're ready for us to pick. So I'm excited for that to happen. Okay, we have sing our song, and now it is time for our question. Okay, so our question today is going to be a little bit of a longer one. But before we do that, let's write out our words. Or not our words, our numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The question today is going to be, how does the story make you feel? How many words? I think we might need 2 hands. Let's see. How does the story make you feel? So that's 5 plus 2 equals 7. So that's 7 words. So we're going to circle the number 7. We'll write out 7 lines. One, two, three, four, five, six, 7. And this sentence begins with the word how. So that tells us this is going to be a question. Sentences that start with the word how are questions. So we'll do a question mark. The first word is how. That's an H. How. That's a W. And I know that there is an O here. O, W together can sound like ow. So, ow. How does, it's a D, does, it's an S. I know that there is an O and an E. How does V? We know that V is spelled T-H-E. How does the story? It's an S. What other sounds do we hear in story? And the ending sound is E, but it sounds like an E, but I know that it is a Y. Sometimes when the Y is at the end of a word, it can sound like E. So what else do we hear in the word story? St, that's a T. Store, an R. And I know there's an O here. How does the story make? M. Make. So that is a K. It's down, in, and out. And let's see what other sounds do we hear in make. A. That's an A. And I know that we need to add an E to the end to change this into an A sound instead of an A sound. How does the story make you? We know that the word you is spelled Y-O-U. How does the story make you feel? It's an F. And the ending sound in feel, it's an L. So let's say that again. Feel. What sound do you hear in the middle? Feel. That's an E and an E. How does the story make you feel? So when we're finished reading our celebrated book, you can see if your parents will type in the answer to this question in the comments, and I'll read it later. So our celebrated book is called Little Mouse's Painting by Diane Wolkstein, and pictures are by Mary Jane Begin. So this is a title page. It says Little Mouse's Painting, as the author and the illustrator, and the publisher is Morrow Junior Books from New York. Little Mouse lived in her own pretty house under the earth. She had a sweet-smelling bed made of pine wood and honeysuckle vines, a small braided rug, and a painting by her grandmother that hung on the wall over her cupboard. Every day Little Mouse ate her breakfast of berries and nuts, made her bed, and went up the steps to visit her friends. Bear, Squirrel, and Porcupine were Little Mouse's friends. Some days she picked berries and nuts with Bear. "Ho, ho!" Bear would shout whenever he found a particularly fine patch of berries. "Ah, ah!" he would sigh as he happily ate them. Some days Little Mouse was invited to Squirrel's tree house and had tea and crackers and flowers. Squirrel loved flowers. Sometimes he arranged them carefully in acorn cups, and sometimes he ate them. Other days Little Mouse went for long walks with Porcupine. Porcupine never walked in a straight line, but wandered from one side of the path to the other. She'd often stop to look at something closely and say, "Oh, look at that stone. Just look at that stone." Or, "Look at that cloud. Just look at that cloud." Then Little Mouse would also pause and examine the stone or quietly stare at the cloud. But one evening, even though she liked to see her friends, Little Mouse decided she would do something by herself. She decided she would make a painting. The next morning, Little Mouse set up her grandmother's easel near a blueberry bush and began to paint. The sun shone on her. She made long, thin strokes. She made short, thick strokes. She painted all morning, singing as she worked, and only stopped from time to time for a snack of berries. By afternoon, her painting was finished. As she was looking at it, she heard thump, thump, thump. It was Bear. Little Mouse hid behind a tree. "Ho, ho!" cried Bear. "That's a beautiful painting. A bear must have painted that painting." "No!" cried Little Mouse, coming out from behind the tree. "I did." "You?" asked Bear, surprised. "Yes, me." "Well, I like the bear in the middle of the painting." "It's not a bear. It's a blueberry bush." "It's a bear." "It's a blueberry bush." "Where?" cried Squirrel from his tree. Squirrel looked from Bear to the painting and said, "What bear? What berry? That's a squirrel." "Where? What squirrel?" cried Bear and Little Mouse together. Squirrel pointed to the bottom of the painting. "No," said Little Mouse, shaking her head. "That's a daisy." "A daisy? That's a squirrel." "It's a daisy." "Stop!" shouted Bear. "Let's go see Porcupine. She's sure to know." Bear thumped along carrying the easel. Squirrel raced ahead with the paintbrushes, and Little Mouse went the slowest, for she was holding the painting. When they arrived at Porcupine's house, Bear called, "Porcupine,
Please come out. We have something important to show you. Porcupine came out of her house and saw Bear, Squirrel, and Little Mouse staring at a painting, which they had placed under an elm tree. She stared too. Then she said, "Look at that porcupine! Just look at that porcupine!" "What porcupine? Where?" cried Squirrel, Bear, and Little Mouse. "There," Porcupine said, pointing to the top of the painting. "No, no," the others shouted. "That's a bear! That's a squirrel!" "No, no!" Little Mouse cried. But no one paid any attention to her, so she said to the elm, "Perhaps you would like to know what I think. Yes, good. Then I'll tell you. The sun is at the top, the blueberry bush is in the middle, and the daisy with the leaf is at the bottom." "I know. How do I know?" "I know because I painted it." "Well, now," said Porcupine, "I think I'll take a closer look." Porcupine went up very close to the painting. "Look," she said. Squirrel went up very close to the painting. "A flower and a leaf! How yummy!" he said. Then Bear went up to the painting. "Ho, ho!" he shouted. "The blueberry bush! I see the blueberry bush! From close up, I can see the blueberry bush." "And I can see the sun's rays!" cried Porcupine. "Do you know, I think the blueberry bush looks a lot like you, Bear." Sighed Bear, quite pleased. "It's a beautiful painting," said Squirrel. "Leave it here for us to look at," said Porcupine. Little Mouse left her painting on the easel all day, but when the stars came out, she rolled it up, picked up her grandmother's easel, and carried the painting and the easel and the paintbrushes to her house. Little Mouse hung the painting on the wall opposite of her bed. She sat on her bed and looked at the painting. She walked around her room and looked at it from many different places. She sat on her rug. She jumped up onto her cupboard. She sat on her bed again. Then she said, "Bear is right. When I sit on my bed far from the painting, the blueberry bush looks like Bear. But when I am very close to the painting, the blueberry bush looks just like a blueberry bush." Little Mouse ate her supper of berries and nuts. She drank a glass of water and tucked herself into bed. From her bed, she looked at the painting of Bear, Squirrel, and Porcupine. Then she closed her eyes, smiled happily, and said, "Good night, Squirrel. Good night, Porcupine. Good night, Bear. Good night, my friends. I'm glad you're all in my painting." And Little Mouse fell asleep. Soon she began to dream, and in her dream she saw clouds, trees, and stones, all of which looked a little like Bear, Squirrel, Porcupine, and Little Mouse. And that's the end. Okay, so we have read our celebrated book, so it's time for you to think about your answer to our question. The question was, how does the story make you feel? And whenever you have an answer, your parents can type it in the comments on the video, and I will read it later. Okay. So now it's time for our poem of the day. We said that today is April the 14th. So I'm going to go to April 14th, which happens to be the same page as yesterday. This poem is a little bit longer than some of the other poems that we read. It is called Birdland. I can remember the first time I flew, the thrill of the takeoff, the joy of the lift, the victory over gravity. I so enjoyed cruising over clouds. I so enjoyed looking out for angels. How I enjoyed looking down on the tiny people below, and wondering if they were looking up at me and wondering. The birds were cool, flying is wonderful, and landing is exciting. Yes, I can remember the first time I flew. It was great. I still fly every now and then, but now I use airplanes. And it says anonymous, so that means we don't know who wrote this poem, but let me show you the illustration now.
Okay, we read our poem of the day, so now it's time for our activity. So our activity today is actually going to be a challenge. So you're going to have to do something at home. I want you to draw a picture, color a picture, paint a picture, however you want to do it, of your favorite toy at home. So maybe it's your favorite car, or maybe your favorite material that you have at home are your coloring books, or maybe it's your favorite dress-up clothes. So draw a picture of your favorite toy and then send me a picture, and we can put that in your art portfolio for Art Month. Okay, so right now it's time for stickers. If you have a sticker at home, it's time to give one to yourself. It's the end of gathering, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.